Hey guys, this is Kieran from MSK Physio, and today we're looking at the seated good morning. It's a great exercise for developing some outer range hip extensor control. So trying to learn how to control my hip muscles when they're in a long position, as well as adding a little bit of a back stability component to it. So great exercise for increasing the depth of your squat or your deadlifts, as well as just opening up a lot more flexibility in your hips. So if that sounds like some things that you're looking for, then give this exercise a go. When you're beginning this exercise, if you don't have enough hip flexion, so the ability for my knee to be closer to my chest, then you might need a bit of a booster seat. And what that does is it drops my knee below my hips, and it allows me to demonstrate more range, and it means you might get a little bit more out of this. What we're trying to do as a prerequisite is that if you can sit here upright, so that when you go forward, the torso is staying in that upright position. At really, really low loads, like body weight, totally fine if you're gonna flex your back and bend over like this. At heavier weights, we're stronger in a more flexed position, a little bit more in our upper erector spinae. And so you might get away with a little bit of upper curve like this, but ultimately we're just trying to create some inner range strength. We're not saying it's bad to flex, but for this we're just trying to create something that would look similar to what you do when you squat, which is this movement in a hip-based or a low bar squat. So if you feel like you can't get forward, you haven't got this range or this tipping through your hips, then give yourself a little booster seat, and you might find that that range actually opens up a lot for you. You might start off with just a dowel or with a plate like this, coming forward and back, but eventually you're going to move on to a barbell, and that barbell is going to enable you to increase the weight over time. So I've got a 20 kilo bar here. Isn't the prettiest way to get the bar, but you could come in from the front. This is obviously way too low for me to start, but if I'm here, I can lift and sit down. I might have these safety bars here as a bit of a sort of, I need to bow out a little bit, so you just put them at a height at the range that you can handle. Or, just for the purposes of showing you guys, if I come under this way and come up and down, I'm going to keep my legs reasonably narrow. You could go wide as well, depends on your sort of squat width, but if you're a little more narrow, you're going to be getting into slightly different musculature and hip joint capsule, whereas over here, different kind of limitations. So I would just go with the range that feels most restricted. If you're coming into this range here, it's going to be maybe a little bit more groin. If you're coming into this range here, potentially it might be a little bit more hamstrings. So you're just going to come back and forth with the bar. Now some of you may not feel the hip extensors doing much. If you're moving like this, they are doing work. It's not that they're not turned on. You just may not be used to using them in that way, so you're not really used to feeling the information, the mechanical information coming back and forth between those muscles stretching. At the same time, if your joint isn't used to going through these ranges, then you're not getting that feedback loop of joint motion going into muscle tone. So just play around with it to start, nice and light, get used to this sort of pelvic rocking movement. You might go a little bit wider, and that'll get into some more adductor restrictions. If I'm in here, you can also play around with foot position if it's a little bit further in front. Now I'm lengthening the hamstrings a bit more. If I bend the knees, I'm shortening the hamstrings at my knee, which gives them a little more range at the hip. If I lengthen them this way, now they're long at the knee end, so it's a little bit less range at the hip. So you can see the limitation difference. If I bend the knees, all of a sudden I can drop a little bit further. So great exercise. Use the same kind of reps and sets you'd use for any sort of, trying to build skill. So, you're getting into 10 to 12 type reps. Use a light weight to start, but if it's of interest to you, you can definitely push this into much heavier weights. There are some people that even build the mobility of chest down to the bench. Don't necessarily need that for a squat. If you're able to lunge and get your thigh to your chest, that's going to carry over into your sprinting, but the capacity for both legs to be able to do that in this position, I mean, if it's your kind of interest, then go for it. But we're not talking about building, the capacity for a resting squat here. That's a little bit different. This will help with that, but you see, I can do that with my chest touching, and I can't get my chest to the bench. So play around with it, see what you want out of it. You can build the strength, but it's useful initially for just building pelvic awareness and getting used to keeping the back somewhat in the same position as you rock back and forth while the hips do that rocking. So two things happening at once. If you like this video, then please hit like below. Otherwise, to check out more of our content in the future, you can subscribe to our channel by clicking our logo over here. And to check out our latest video, click up here.